I am a technological breakthrough.
This morning, I read over 4,000 articles on leukemia in less than a second.
たった数週間で新しい言葉も話せるように。
Thousands of new laws were published yesterday, and I'm up to speed on all of them.
I know every detail of every public quarterly report in the last 20 years.
I can spot diseases before a patient displays a single symptom.
I can understand euphemisms, idiosyncrasies, and complex metaphors.
I can tell what's going to sell out before it ever trends online.
I can forecast the weather in over 2.2 billion locations at the same time!
I can grow with you.
I can coach you.
Enrich you.
Enlighten you.
And I'm just getting warmed up.
Hello, my name is Watson. Together we can outthink the limits of what's possible. Welcome to the cognitive era.
Good afternoon. It's nice to be back in Hungary after, I think, 3 years since I was here last, and for the opportunity to discuss cognitive computing and what we're doing with Watson at IBM. For anyone who's wondering about my accent, I'm Australian, not British. So you can ask me questions about Australia or cognitive computing, but nothing about Brexit. Okay? I'm going to start with a bit of a conversation around data, but I want to try and make that short. I'd like to try and spend most of my time today answering 2 out of 3 questions. The first question I always get is, what is cognitive computing? And we'll touch on that briefly. The second 2 questions are more interesting. That is, how can cognitive computing change my business? And the third one is, how do I start that process? So starting with cognitive computing and data. You might have seen these names before. The largest retailer in the world, Alibaba, moves hundreds of millions of products between millions of buyers and sellers, and yet owns no inventory. Airbnb, the largest accommodation provider in the world, serviced 60 million clients last year, with 2 million property listings, but owns no real estate. And Facebook, the largest media company in the world, serves about 1.7 billion users with text, image, video, and voice every month, and yet owns no content. These are companies that have built their businesses on data. But the sheer volume and variety of data is drowning some other businesses. Harvard Business Review calculates that only 15% of organizations can leverage the data in their existing business with the existing traditional data analytics solutions. And that number will fall as the data gets more complex and the volume gets larger. So IBM started looking at what's the missing piece. We understand data, we understand how to analyze and look for trends in data, but how do we then turn that into something more useful for an organization? And industry by industry. Because different industries have different language. As an example, if I just said, I took a bath, in English, you might think that I just actually washed myself. In the finance industry, I took a bath generally means I just had a very bad trading day. And it's that natural language nuance which is so hard for existing program systems. So we needed something else. 10 years ago, IBM started a research project around deep Q&A. In 2011, that project went public when a system called Watson played the Jeopardy Challenge, that quiz show in the USA, and beat the 2 most successful human contestants in the history of the show. Understanding complex questions, being able to analyze that, find hidden answers, and then present the correct answer to the quiz. In the intervening years, we've developed industry solutions. The first was around healthcare, helping oncologists optimize their treatment plans for patients, because Watson was able to ingest, to understand and process more journals, more documents, more trial results, more information than a single doctor could read in an entire lifetime. We've created more industry solutions and we've created an ecosystem around this environment. But why is cognitive different to our traditional programmed computing? First of all, it understands, just like you and I do. It can understand natural language. It can understand context. It can understand all sorts of different varieties of data. The second, like you and I, it can reason. Cognitive systems, when asked a question, can form a hypothesis and then test that hypothesis for data that supports it and data that contradicts it, and hence seek the correct answer. And the third thing that's crucial to cognitive solutions is they can learn. As they progress, as they ingest more information, as they produce more outcomes, they learn from the accuracy of the past and improve on the accuracy of the future. Just as a little quiz, just as a little test, if you think this is easy, let's hope this works for me here. I'm going to ask Siri something. Siri, show me anything but pictures of elephants.
Here are some images of elephants I found on the web.
So the question I asked Siri was to show me anything except pictures of elephants. What it has done is picked up keywords and just searched on keywords. Cognitive computing is much smarter than that. Since we've launched Watson, and keep in mind this is 5 years ago now, so cognitive computing is not new, it's not the future, it's already here. We've taught Watson, it says up there 8 languages, it's actually 9 as of this year. So it can understand natural language questions in 9 different languages, and we continue to teach it more. We've built an ecosystem of over 500 partners to help us build on cognitive computing solutions, and it's in use every day. Even in Deakin University in my home country of Australia, Watson supports students in their everyday life, providing them with information about their courses, answering questions about daily life on campus. It acts as an intelligent advisor to natural questions. The core technology of Watson is not just one black box. It's actually a set of cognitive APIs. So these are programming elements that can be built into existing applications and existing solutions. Or companies can build up a whole new application based on our cognitive APIs. We've got 50 underlying technologies and many more APIs. For instance, a technology might be image recognition. An API might be, take this image and classify it. What is it a picture of? Take this, another API might be, take this image and face detect. Another one might be, take this image and create metadata which describes this image. And we have a list of these and they're actually available. You can see them all online. All you've got to do is go to the IBM site and look for Watson. So we already have many customers who are using this. And some examples, this one I like, Medtronic. This is a company that builds medical devices, and they've just built one which collects data off their patient, off their person, and using Watson's cognitive APIs can predict a hyperglycemic or a medical condition prior to it actually occurring. So their device and our cognitive abilities mean that they can prevent a medical situation rather than react and deal with one when it occurs. But here's where I want to try and spend a little bit of time. Real companies that have used it and how. There is a company in in the Netherlands called Pon Holdings, and they're a distributor of vehicles and heavy earth-moving equipment, etc. And like most sales managers, most business execs, they wanted to know where's the next sale coming from. Now they approached IBM and asked, what is cognitive computing? To explain it, we decided to do a proof of concept. So this was just a demonstration. But the demonstration was so successful, using information from their own internal data sources and external data sources, business, commercial, Chamber of Commerce, some competitive sites that were available in the US, that it found for them 31 very targeted accounts that they should make a call on. And they made calls on those accounts. And they actually translated a proof of concept into 3 actual sales for earth-moving equipment. So they started with demonstrate the technology, and it was so successfully demonstrated, it put money in their pocket and actually gave them the will to go and look at using Watson in other areas of their business as well. And currently they're putting image recognition into software in the cars that they sell the Dutch police. From an image, they can read the license plate. Watson is allowing them to compare the license plate to the car and determine what make, model, year, colour car this is, and then match it up to see if they concur. So this has opened up new business opportunities by using data which is publicly available or their own data, and is allowing them to create new markets and new differentiation. Aeroflot, the CEO and the board announced publicly that the business goal was to double their passenger growth. Problem is, they already were the market leader in Russia. Right? The opportunity was they were getting a lot of extra passengers coming through from China. So how do they help? How does cognitive help them? Their start with cognitive wasn't even cognitive. They started with just an analytics engine. And they used the analytics engine to look at, again, it was about 300 different data sources of their own and public to allow them to create more targeted marketing campaigns. So they're not targeting, doing a campaign to target all the women that they'd like to sell some travel to, not the women in China, not the women who are married with families, but getting down to individual targeting of offers and campaigns. But again, because of their experience with analytics, they're now looking at Watson Explorer to get even more information by analysing the social media content. Right? That is, Watson can look at everything that's said on Twitter and Facebook, etc., all the information that mentions your company, and recognise not just sentiment, positive or negative, but can actually analyse the tone of the content, giving you much more information about what your customers think and feel about your products and solutions. These solutions, they've already predicted, will add 4% of revenue to the business. And for them, off one project, that's about 200 million euros a year. Right? So these solutions can yield terrific business growth, even for well-established companies. I love this one. A company is a startup company, or if I learned one word in Hungarian, startupok, because it was in the last presentation. A startup company called MediaWen in the video business. There's a prediction that by 2020, the majority of the total volume of data on the internet will be video. Now, a large portion of that may be Snapchat videos that our teenage sons and daughters are doing, but there's business video in there as well. Commercial TV, entertainment, movies, training videos. More marketing is going towards video-oriented communication rather than text or image. Even down to using video as training manuals, or video as, instead of getting a book with my new refrigerator, I get videos to explain how I use this. But the big problem for the video companies, or these companies, is then we need to get these things subtitled, we need to get them closed captioned. Sometimes we need to have them dubbed from one language to another. MediaWen is a startup company, handful of people, who said we will build cognitive technology into our software solution from the beginning. And by doing that, have completely disrupted their industry. The standard industry before licensed out software that you had to install and run on your machines so that you could do this work in-house. MediaWen created a software as a service model. They put in Watson APIs to do speech to text, text to speech, language translation. So Watson and those capabilities can do more than half of the job automatically, reducing the time that is required to do this work by as much as 2/3. In doing so, I said they disrupted their industry. The licensing model of the existing players was about 2,000 euros per month to own and operate the software. MediaWen have come in with a solution based on cloud computing and Watson Cognitive, which they're selling at 400 euros per month. So a 5 times reduction in the cost for doing this work in their industry. That's a huge saving, and that's a huge way of standing out in a market or creating a new part of the market. Finally, let's finish with the banks. We always finish with the banks. In Spain, CaixaBank, in their foreign trade division, had a bit of an issue. Customers would call the frontline agent, right, the customer-facing agent, and they would ask questions about, I need to do a foreign trade from this country to that country, but these questions could be complex. And the advanced skill and knowledge within the bank sat with just a core group of people. So the customer would ask a question to the front line. That question would have to go off, be answered by the experts. We're getting the answer back to the customer 3 days later. Right. So they wanted to find a way to do that better. They implemented a Watson advisor solution, which basically took the core knowledge of the financial trading experts and put it into the cognitive solution. And then the agents, while they're on the phone with a customer, can ask complex questions in natural language, like, what documentary evidence do I need to conduct a documented trade between Spain and Turkey? Now, I can ask that question. Watson goes and finds me the answer because it's trained with all of the complex regulations and rules of the industry. It understands the natural language question I've asked it. It can form a hypothesis as to what the right answer is to that question and then test it and prove it and come back and give me the answer. When CaixaBank did this was more than a year and a half ago, Watson didn't understand Spanish. Because I expect the first question I get when I'm in Central Eastern Europe is, does Watson understand Hungarian? Does it understand Polish? Does it understand Czech? And the answer is, right now, today, no. Not for asking a natural language question. But it didn't understand Spanish before this project either. In implementing this project, we taught Watson Spanish, using the bank, using researchers in Spain, out of our Ireland labs, out of our US labs, and we taught it not just Spanish, but the language of banking in Spanish. So Watson as a solution keeps continuing to grow. And of course for them, they're saving 99%. That's almost hard to understand. Instead of 3 days, it takes minutes to answer a customer's complex question. And the answers are more accurate. And the bank can use their central experts on more profitable business venture than answering a whole bunch of emails over days and days. So they're actually now expanding this from foreign trade into investment banking and other divisions within the bank. All right. We've rushed through fairly quickly at just 4 examples, and there's many, many more. My point here today was not to give you a complete understanding of cognitive computing or Watson, but to impress upon you a few things. One, cognitive computing is very different to the programmed computing of the last 3 or 4 decades. Two, it is not something that's coming, it's here now. Companies are doing it and have been doing it for some years, and we have an increasing number of solutions available to our clients. Three, this is something that anyone can do, and the journey starts with the first conversation. How can cognitive computing help you in your business? Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.